The Reboot round in the Fortnite Champions series has given us some of Fortnite's most intense and nail-biting moments in the last 3 years.
Let's go! Let's go! No way! 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 We won! No way! No way! We won!
What about it makes it so entertaining to watch? And why doesn't every final game of the FNCS have this same level of excitement? Reboot yourself into Chapter 1 Season 1. Life is good. You probably suck at the game. But after many attempts, you finally pick up that big victory royale. You end up posting it on your Snapchat for all of your friends to see, and you see 5 friends unfriend you. They are all your female friends, but you don't care because life is good. The excitement for that moment is so relatable to so many different players, and seeing this in a high-level tournament is something that we all love to see, and it really brings back those nostalgic moments. This could be really said across any game in any esports history, and in most games there's a massive winning moment. And this is something that Fortnite really struggles with in general. The winner of the tournament could be completely irrelevant in that last game, since there's either 100 solos or 33 teams of trios in this tournament, and whoever wins has the most points across 6 games. In the first 5 games, a team could perform extremely well, taking a massive lead, then be eliminated in that 6th game, but still win the entire tournament. Meaning that that final game's victory royale kind of provides an anti-climax, because ultimately it's not that relevant to the entire storyline of that first place victory. This is exactly what happened in Chapter 2 Season 4's FNCS. Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson were going up against Andlex, Janus, and Xsqueeze in that final game to see who could take home the first place slot and be crowned the FNCS champions. They were battling out through the early and mid game, and both teams ended up going down in the mid game. Now, although it was interesting on the stream to watch how this happened and the battles between these two, once they had gone down, the game was completely almost irrelevant. It was won by Miro, Snap, and Swag, who played very well, picking up 12 eliminations, but this moved them to 22nd. So the final match in the tournament that we watched was a team who picked up a victory royale and ended up coming 22nd, which honestly was quite a meaningless moment in comparison to the entire tournament. When we think back to some of the biggest hype moments in Fortnite history, probably the top 2 that comes to mind is Bugha winning the World Cup solos.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no way anyone beats him! Your Fortnite World Champion, Bugha!
And Mr. Savage winning DreamHack Anaheim by picking up the victory royale in his final game.
He goes for the dive. No mats. Here we go. Odinite dodges the shot. Savage still up top. The 4th shot. Hits. Oh! And takes Odin now.
But why do these stand out so much? Well, for these two first, an example, they have different reasons that basically sum up the same thing. Firstly, both of the players involved with winning the tournament were in the game nearly all the way to the end, which means they were always involved in the conversation and always left in the viewer's mind. In the World Cup, in that final game, Bugha was obviously being talked about for the entire time because of his incredibly dominant performance, but also in that final game, he ended up placing 5th with 5 eliminations. So he was always in the discussion, in the viewing of this final game, and after he went down, it wasn't that long until the game was over, and then that big moment of announcement, Bugha has won the World Cup, came right after that.
Cup is yours one more time, your world champion, Bugha!
So despite the fact that he may not have picked up the victory royale in the final game, he still got his huge moment with the crowds cheering afterwards and picking up the trophy and holding it over his head in a massive, incredible, chill-giving fashion. For Savage at Anaheim, obviously he won the final game, therefore that moment was instant. You could see him winning it and you knew that he took that whole tournament. And let's be real, Bola and Shayo brought the heat for this moment. Another thing that both of these moments have in common is the stakes were high. For Bugha at World Cup, obviously $3 million in the first place slot, the stakes were extremely high. Plus, with it being the World Cup and him going to be crowned the World Cup champion, this is a huge stake and everyone wants to see who is going to be in that first place slot. when it came to DreamHack Anaheim, we knew again that for Savage, he had to perform in that final game and had to pick up that big victory royale as well, so that he could take that first place slot in that LAN environment. These two factors are the things that really miss out in some tournaments, and it becomes a little bit RNG. Let's go back to our other example of Chapter 2 Season 4 in EU, where both of the teams in that first place slot went down in the mid-game. Neither of the teams in that first place contention were even in the conversation when it came to endgame, so it was around 10 minutes of discussion watching the game before we even mentioned them again. Meaning that in a viewer's perception, it just isn't that exciting. Plus, there wasn't really anything else on the line. Once those two had gone down, the spectators and pretty much everyone knew that they had taken first and second slot, meaning that whoever picked up the victory royale in that final game was completely irrelevant to the storyline, and there was no hype built around that. From a viewing and storytelling experience, this is just a little bit of one of the issues of the format in terms of having X amount of games and whoever gets the most points wins. An alternative format that BallTW discussed, which I cannot find the video for, but I'm just going to tell you how it is what similar to what Apex Legends does. It's a match point system that once you get over a certain point threshold, then the next person that gets the victory royale will win, meaning that big winning moment will always happen. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of this for a competitive side, because you can have a team who is very, very consistent, placing second over and over again, and they're not rewarded for their incredible gameplay. From a competitive esports side, there's a couple issues with that format in terms of trying to get the best teams to actually win. However, from a storyline perspective and from a top tier excitement big victory royale moment, this would be an incredible format for that, and it would be interesting to see how this plays out in some sort of a third party tournament that has a broadcast. So as long as we have a format that ends up being whoever has the most amount of points after a set number of games, this is probably always going to be an issue. So it'll always depend really on if those top teams just stay alive in that last game to get that big winning moment or not, so kind of RNG. But what if there's a way that we could always have this excitement every single season? Enter the Reboot round. For people unfamiliar with how the Reboot round works and what it is, let me give you a quick rundown of the FNCS format. This season there's been 3 qualifiers. Out of those 3 qualifiers, the top 132 teams made it through to the semi-finals, which was often called the heats. There are 4 of these heats and they all play 6 games. The top 8 from each of these heats will go on into the finals, and if you've done your maths correctly, you'll find that 4 times 8 means 32 teams go through to the finals. Now, in the trios lobby, there's usually 33 teams, as this makes 99 players, but in this, we've only got 32. So the Reboot round is originally a way just to fill that last slot without having random heat have one more team come through. So what happens is, after the top 8 teams that go through to the finals, the next best teams all go through to the Reboot round. That means teams that place 9th till 16th in the respective heats go to the Reboot round. That means that all you need to do is pick up a victory royale in one single match, and this team will make it through to fill that final slot in the finals. This is something that Fortnite has been lacking for a long time. Whoever picks up the victory royale wins. And for EU, I was really focused on Nate, Kizix and 4ZR. If you didn't know anything about the French region, one of their large internet providers, Orange, during the heat went down, and this team ended up missing 3 games, or they actually had to play as a solo for those 3 games, if I should say correctly. A lot of other teams had this issue as well, because they're all under that provider, and particularly the French teams. And I was hoping for them to get through during the Reboot round, as this was our last chance to make finals. When I saw the first one go down during that mid-game, my heart was sinking. I was so invested in it, and this is one of the beauties of the Reboot round. It's just following the teams that you want to get through and building hype for them every single elimination, as it always matters. They unfortunately did not make it to endgame. However, the last 2 teams alive were Diablo, Flecken and Bayon, going up against Greino, Shaycause and MXR, a French team who also had internet issues as well. Came down to a huge heel-off, but Diablo, Flecken and Bayon ended up picking up the victory royale.
But it's head-to-head, Flecken versus Gray. He's got cabbages and floppers. Gray will have to drop down and find this elimination. Flecken with the flops, pops one over. That's his last. Gray, 2 seconds, 1, it's over, and it's Flecken.
When you watch it from the perspective of the teams who won, what a moment it is to qualify through for a finals, this last opportunity. And all the way through, it builds hype and hype and hype. As teams get knocked out, the game gets better and it gets more and more interesting. For NA East, the biggest trio, the most well-known trio of Zayt, Zaf and Stretch did not make it through their heat. So coming into the reboot round, it was all to play for. However, this reboot round was no pushover. There was a total of 126 FNCS final appearances throughout all of the players in the reboot round, which was more stacked than any other heat, as the highest to the heats was 106. So this was an incredibly stacked lobby. Another notable team in here was Calc's team, who was teaming with Furious and Sebi. The reason these two teams in particular were notable is that Calc and Stretch on opposing teams both have qualified for every FNCS final. So if one of these teams qualify, the other one will not, and that streak will be broken, meaning that there is a guarantee that at least one of these teams will no longer have made it through to every single FNCS finals. Coming towards endgame, Zayt, Zaf and Stretch were just in such a good position. They'd already positioned themselves on high ground, they had heals, and most importantly, they had the rocket launcher with 7 rockets in it too. And they were contesting the height at 5th zone against Dubs, Mega and Eclipse, who were roughly on equal verticality, but that rocket launcher pressured them down. They played an incredible endgame, playing the format for the Victory Royale absolutely perfectly, and you cannot tell me that this is not one of the most hype moments in Fortnite history.
He gets more splashes, he gets more floppers. Is this enough? He can pull off the double med kit. They RPGs them. They take down Dubs, but they don't take down Mega. He's deep in Storm. Stretch is setting up. He's looking. He's got the meds, but he's also got the eyes in the sky. Who has more meds, Stretch or Mega? Mega went out deep. He went in early. He's pushing back in. He knows he doesn't have it. He can't get the med kit off. That's it. As long as Stretch heals this, Zayt, Saf, and Stretch will be going through to the grand final.
Wow.
Stretch holds on to his history. He goes into every single FNCS grand final.
For the remainder of Fortnite competitive, I'm pretty sure that we're going to have the same format, where the most points is the one who wins the tournament, meaning that big victory moment will probably be left only for the LANs, or just where the teams or individuals end up getting the Victory Royale in their last game, which is slightly RNG. However, we're hopefully going to have the reboot round every single FNCS, and you can bet that this will be the most hyped game of every single season. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. I've been Reisshub. Peace.